So let's talk about men's aversion to dating promiscuous women. So I've seen a lot of these questions and a lot of these discussions on men's aversion to wanting to date women with a large body count. And there's a lot of the catch 22 questions of asking a woman, does body count matter? And then you ask them for their body count. And then all of a sudden they're like, dude, I can't tell you to eat. Like all that nonsense. Because obviously, like, they know that, like, men who want to, like, seriously date them kind of don't like it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut through a lot of the nonsense that I keep seeing on like these dating podcasts and all these different forums and Reddit and YouTube comments and stuff, and just kind of say what it is, honestly and thoroughly, and hopefully give you guys some strong, good arguments as to why young men are befuddled and thrown off by sexual promiscuity in women, and also stop all of the blustering and pretending. You'll see what I mean in a moment. So essentially, one of the grand responses that a lot of ladies always have when young men suggest that they don't like dating women that have been promiscuous or have a large body count, which I'll be honest is a rather juvenile way to explain that, is that these men are insecure. Now, here's the correct response to that. Duh. Duh. Duh! Of course they are! As in, like, why wouldn't they be? If you think about this one from a logical, reasonable point of view, where you as a woman have a huge amount of sexual experience that this young man just can't match by virtue of being a young man and not being as attractive as you are, of course they're going to logically be insecure when they have to match their sexual experience against your sexual experience. And considering the fact that your sexual experience comes with a whole bunch of different standards and expectations he can't meet, he becomes unsure of his ability to perform. Insecure. That's what the word means. Now, of course, because a lot of people code insecurity as like a weakness and not masculine and all that nonsense, a lot of people want to skirt around that point. I see it a lot on the Whatever podcast. A lot of guys want to pretend that they're not actually being insecure when they are. Instead of owning that you are, to be fair, scared and don't think that you can measure up to the woman's desires, you pretend that it's the complete bloody opposite. That in all actuality, it's just your preference. You just feel that way. It's just how you feel, man. And it's my standard. It's how I feel. It's okay. Yeah, you feel that way because you're insecure. Own it. Own it with sincerity, that it bothers you. And here's the thing, and this is why I want you guys to take comfort in this reality and why you should own it. It is reasonable. Why is it reasonable? Because of stories like this.
I'm sexually unsatisfied with the person who is otherwise the love of my life area. As soon as I moved out, I got on dating apps and I met up with some guys. Those experiences were like nothing I've ever had before or since. Most of them were dominant in bed. A lot of them were really experienced. It was the most sexually satisfied I'd ever felt, quote unquote. And then after a month of that, so just 1 month, boys, 30 days, just 1 month, I met the person I'm with now and we fell in love hard. We just clicked. I almost immediately cut off all the guys I was casual with after we met, before we were even official, because it felt so perfect with them and I knew we would be together. He's my best friend. I do everything with him. My life is enriched so deeply by his presence in it. I truly can't describe it. He cares for me more than anyone has ever cared for me. He motivates me. He makes me a better person. He cheers me on. He constantly is finding ways to show me love. He makes me laugh. He's more than I ever expected to get out of a partner. I want to marry him. There's so much romance between us, it's unreal. And honestly, in a physical sense, we're both extremely attracted to each other too. He's not only got my ideal personality in a guy, but he's also stunning. He makes my heart pound every time I look at him. Even now, years later, everything is almost perfect. Almost. Except for the fact that sex between us just seems to leave me wanting more. There's something missing. It's just not smooth. It's not awkward. And I do get something out of it, but it's just kind of too fast and too hard, or not hard enough, or not fast enough, and I can't seem to get him to understand what it is I want. He doesn't dislike it, but he doesn't like it either. Obviously, that's a turnoff. Also, again, he doesn't seem to know how to do it the way I like it, no matter how hard I try to explain. I really can't describe what exactly it is, but the experiences I've had before, the fantasies I make for myself, and the content I see online all have something to them that I just can't seem to get from him. It upsets me a lot, to be honest, because I know I want to be with this person for the rest of my life. And I'm struggling to accept that I probably won't be getting the sex life I have so badly wished for my whole life. I live off the memories of that 1 month I had, and I'm dying for a taste of that again.
Now again, one of these days I'm going to do some full commentary on this and like really break it down. But the long and short of it is, women's long-standing promiscuous past can have far-reaching effects on your relationship. Their expectations, the things they desire, sometimes down to like the members of, how the length of their penis, let's just be adults here, right? Are all things that you just as a young man can't do anything about. You can't match her sexual experience. You can't match her expectations. You can't match her desire for a penis size. So, in order to avoid all of those unreasonable expectations that you can't match, you want to avoid women that are promiscuous. Game, set, match. As a woman, I'm going to be honest with you. You can call it weak, insecure, unfair as much as you want, but then that's where we proceed to the next point here. So the next thing is, even if it isn't like pure insecurity or whatever, there is a probability and a reasonable aversion to this stuff. Now, tabling the hypocrisy of the high-value, select, Chad, Tyrone men who somehow think that it's fine for them to be promiscuous, but then like don't think it's fine for women to be promiscuous, which makes absolutely no sense, because if women aren't supposed to be promiscuous, how are you able to have sex with them? Tabling that hypocrisy to the side, men who actually want long-term relationships with women, wanting to avoid a promiscuous past, again, not just because it is clearly going to make them insecure, reasonably so, but also because of based on how men think. Men like to think in terms of probability, reasonability, things that make sense. There is a probability, a strong probability, that a woman that has had sex with lots of people probably is not going to be satisfied, hard stopping to be with one person. Now, here's the truth. Here's the truth that as young men we all have to accept. Again, you guys aren't going to like this video. It's going to make you real uncomfortable, but this is the God-honest reality. The God-honest reality is a woman that has had sex with 300 people can get to number 301 and stop having sex with guys. It is possible. Is it likely? No. And that's fair. That's reasonable. That's argument enough. That's a strong argument right there. It's possible that a woman can have sex with, in a more reasonable way, 50 people. Maybe that's 25. I've met women that have had sex with like 25 guys. So it's not totally unreasonable, but it is still a lot of people. It's true that a woman can have a lot of sex with a lot of different people, and then at the end of it all, turn it off and then just be with one guy and like lovingly be with that one guy, be good to that one guy, only continue to have sex with that one guy and be completely satisfied. It is possible, but it doesn't mean it's probable. And as such, as young men, you can acknowledge the reality. You can acknowledge that it can happen, but let's just be real. It probably isn't gonna be you, young lady, that's had that promiscuous past. You're not that gal. You're not her. You're not her. And I think that's fair as young men to say, I don't think you're her. You could be her. I don't think you are her. And as such, it is the responsibility of the woman to, well, there I would say, prove herself worthy if she wants to be with a man. God forbid we say women should have to like prove their virtue and character if they want to be with a human being that's supposed to die for them if something bad happens, right? God forbid women have to be worthy of our lives as men, right? God forbid we should work with each other to verify the love and care we have for each other. Only men should ever have to prove that they're like wonderful, great creatures. And only men should have stuff to offer. And only men should ever think about that. Not young ladies for some odd reason. Hopefully you guys get what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that based on the probabilities of just habit forming and just reasonability, it is strong enough to simply say that even if it is possible for a woman to be promiscuous in the past and then be satisfied with her husband that is not the super ultra mega chad that she used to have a bunch of sex with, it's highly improbable. And to avoid your life energy being invested trying to find that one woman, you just avoid the whole thing wholesale. That is fair, strong, and reasonable enough to where you can say, yeah, I don't want to deal with the insecurities of having too small of a PP or not enough sexual experience. And also, even if I do have a big PP and I do have a lot of sexual experience, I don't want to deal with the fact that you might not be satisfied with me. You might think and masturbate to the memories of you being with other dudes. And I don't want to deal with that. And to be honest with you, no matter how much you cry and moan that that's insecure, it's still fair. Because then we can move on to point number 3. And this is the thing that I think is the strongest argument, the strongest thing that young men can say, that should just shut down any conversation about this, how this is insecure, unfair, and is an unreasonable standard that men have for young women. Listen, a woman can reject you for having dirty shoes. If it's okay for a woman to say your shoes are too dirty to date you, then it should be okay for men to say you've had sex with too many people. There it is. If you think that it's okay to say someone is too short, it should be okay for me to say you've dated too many people before me. If you think that it's okay to say that a person is too ugly, that you're just not attracted to them, there's no spark, then it should be okay for me to say, you had sex with a bunch of people, I lost my spark. It's just pure hypocrisy. And if these women want to maintain their hypocrisy, let's just call it what it is, pure hypocrisy and unreasonability, and well, you can be as mad as you want, but you just have to eat that shit. But if you have surface level expectations or standards of men that you will discount them immediately offhand without any thought or consideration to the rest of them, then the actual behaviors that you are doing should be held in equal regard. Think about this one for a second. You can change your shoes. You can change your clothes. You can get a haircut. You may not be able to get taller, but all that external stuff can be worked on. But your mind, your memory, all the different dudes you had sex with is not something that you can just change and exchange like they're Lego pieces. Doesn't work like that. Think about this one for a second. You can get everything that you can get out of someone's style. You can get everything that you can get out of this person based on their physical appearance. All you need to know is just found just on the surface. Even if we were to go one step deeper, you can get everything you get to know by the fact that he's got a Gundam collection, or that the guy still watches Digimon in his free time, or the guy has a book collection, he loves the Lord of the Rings. You can discount all these different dweeby things. You can discount stuff that, you can discount him based on his vocabulary. I've seen women do that before. You can discount men for all different things. You can figure out all you need to know about a dude for so many different avenues. From his hair, to his shoes, to his clothes, to the way he speaks, to the fact that he hasn't had as much sex as you had. You can discount men for so many different things that are surface level and figure out all their character. But all of a sudden, there is nothing to be understood. There is nothing to know about a woman based on the amount of people she's had sex with. You got everything you need to know from his style, but you having sex with multiple men says nothing about your character. The fact that he likes to read books says all you need to know about his character, but there's nothing to be said about the amount of men that you had sex with, all the different strangers, all the different past relationships that didn't work. There is nothing to be understood from your character. You can get everything you need to know from every other thing about men, but when it comes to that, there's nothing to get from that. There's nothing that tells you about another person. There you go. And to me, I'm just going to be honest with you, it's not so much that it's just hypocritical. It doesn't even make sense. It's stupid to tell young men that they should discount a promiscuous past and to take you as you are now. But if he has dirty shoes, you can't even say, change the shoes? You don't have the patience for someone to change their shoes, to change their pants, to change their clothes? But they're supposed to accept a promiscuous past. You can figure all you need to know from his gaming habit. He plays video games too much. But you going out and having multiple parties and having sex with strangers that you just met 4 hours ago says nothing about your character. Nothing. So, yeah. In conclusion, asking women what their body count is and expecting them to be dishonest with you is a bit unfair and uncharitable to women. It is probably true that some of them will lie and they won't be honest with you, but I think that if you're trying to have an earnest relationship with a woman, you should be privy to this information because it does matter to you. She is going to have expectations based on you, based on the experiences she had with other men. I could understand exactly why young men would prefer to be with virginal or close to virginal women. Let's be real, the older you get, the less likely that that's just going to happen. Fair enough. And I do think, to be quite fair, it is the woman's responsibility, as much as it's also a man's responsibility, to treat people as they are, to respect them for who they are, whether they're good at having sex or not good at having sex, and to grow with them and to train them, I guess, if you're into that kind of thing, or like, you know, adapt to the other individual. Now, of course, this all comes down to like having relationships with them, a long period of time where you like get to know them and like talk to them, but we don't do that shit here, so of course we're all like that, right? No, that's stupid. In reality, all of this stuff really can be circumvented by having long-term relationships with people and talking to them and relating to them and being patient with them and, dare I would say, loving them. But if you don't love these people, if you don't care about these people, of course there's going to be all this nonsensical friction that occurs when you're trying to match a woman that can have sex on easy mode versus a man that had to become the super ultra mega dude to then be able to have sex on easy mode. I mean, these two thought processes and understanding of sex and people are just so totally skewed, and when they clash to each other, it shouldn't even be a shock or wonder when there's so much friction. One person had to rise to the rubble to finally be accepted after like years of being rejected, and you think they're not going to harbor resentment? The other person has no regard for all the other people, plus resentment for being mistreated by all these other dudes that she picked, and you think that there's not going to be a problem when they clash against each other? Of course it is. One of the biggest problems here that I keep finding in this whole like body count thing is that we're not stopping to evaluate the fact that casual sex is problematic. This does not lead to good results and people being in good relationships. People love to say that the reason why you have to have a lot of sex is to collect experience points to get to level 15 on your sex meter or whatever the bloody hell. Like it's a skill in RuneScape or like you're in some RPG and all that sexual experience is actually going to be fruitful and help you. Here's the problem. It oftentimes doesn't. Maybe it's not fair to say often, but a lot of the times it doesn't. It creates resentment, it creates disappointment, it creates fantasies in your mind of wanting to be with other people. Now, to be fair, some people will say, well, virginal people might be dissatisfied too, and then maybe they're going to want to have sex with a random person to, you know, relive the stuff that they didn't have. And that's fair and that's true. And at that point, that becomes a conversation of a lack of integrity and a lack of satisfaction in general. However, being dissatisfied can come from two different ways and from two different extremes, and that would be a separate conversation. The long and short of it is, even if it is true that a virginal woman can be dissatisfied with you and cheat, it still doesn't justify having a long promiscuous past because you still end up dissatisfied and wanting to cheat. So you still have a problem. It doesn't actually, it's not even a counter argument. It's just two different things that are adjacent to each other, okay? The long and short of it is this. It is reasonable for young men to want to avoid women that have had lots of sex. And to be 120% honest with you, you can literally flip the genders and all of this still makes sense. I find it ridiculous that any feminist or any young lady doesn't just say, how come men can't be with one woman? Why do you idiots always respond with, how come it's fair that men get to have a bunch of sex and they're not sluts, but if I do it, then I'm a slut? Idiot. Your response should be, how about none of us have a bunch of sex with random people we don't know, and all of us treat each other with some type of compassion and care, considering the fact that this is literally the closest we can be to each other. Instead of aspiring to be like the worst of men, how about you guys tell men to be like you, that actually want to have long-term monogamous relationships, and hold them to that standard? It's because you guys are prideful, arrogant individuals who have drank in the Kool-Aid of feminism to make you believe that you should act like the worst of men instead of the best of men. Because here's the goofy, nonsensical thing. The vast majority of young men actually don't want to be promiscuous, nor do they even have the ability to do so in the first bloody place. Meaning that as a young lady, you are probably always going to have the ability to be more sexually involved, more sexually experienced than most young men. Quite ironically, thanks to modernity, now you are the leaders that you don't want to be. Too bad, so sad. I didn't make the world, I just recognize it. And as such, you have to have kindness and consideration for these young men. Or you could be a virginal young lady and ask to be with another virginal young man. And you're well within your rights to do so. Be honest with you, you're probably going to be able to find a virginal young man super easy. It's not even a challenge. I promise you. Like, I step on these guys all of the time. Like, it's not, they're like cockroaches. They're everywhere. Maybe I shouldn't be calling them cockroaches. I don't actually mean that like they're worthless like cockroaches. I just mean they're so abundant and easy to find. I shouldn't have called them that. I apologize. My point is, due to modernity and due to the way female sexuality works in relation to male sexuality, women are going to have a lot more sexual experience than men. And it's going to make a lot of young men uncomfortable because they know that if they can't perform, you as a lady are not going to have any kindness or grace. So in reality, as a young woman, you got to be a better person. You have to treat young men better. And you have to have a real understanding of how you make someone that you're supposed to care about uncomfortable. You should never besmirch someone you're supposed to care about as insecure. If you care about them, you should want them to feel good. You should want them to feel secure. You should want them to feel comfortable talking to you about this and be patient and work with them. You shouldn't be discounting them because they weren't super promiscuous too to now come to you with some sexual experience that may not even be what you want in the first place. If the two of you actually worked together and loved each other, you can grow and become better in this relationship together. So in conclusion, men want to avoid promiscuous women. Why? Because it legitimately does make them insecure. And for, well, good reason. 2, because, well, it is a little nasty. It also kind of denotes how she views sex. If you can have sex with strangers or you have a whole bunch of relationships under your belt, it seems that you don't stick to people very well, which makes us uncomfortable. And 3, it says something about you as a person. Again, if you can figure out all you need to know from someone because their shoes are dirty, they don't have drip, they don't have enough money. If you can figure all these different things from a man by just looking at them, or you can find all this different stuff from trivialities or just a complete total lack of a bloody spark even though he's all that good. If you can do all of that, then I think it stands to reason that someone can say, you've had sex with 25 people? Yeah, I think I just lost my spark. You could be a hypocrite as much as you want, but it's not really going to help you get into a good relationship if you continue to refuse to understand why young men don't like this. Listen, are there going to be some hypocritical, high-value guys out there? Sure, but you can dismiss them offhand as being hypocrites too and say you don't respect their opinion. But because they're the men that you want, you're probably not going to do that, which means you have something else you should reevaluate. Again, in conclusion, it makes perfect sense as to why young men want to avoid women with a large body count, or a promiscuous past, or a woman that is sexually experienced. It does. And to pretend that there is no reason to it, I'm going to be honest with you, kind of does more to hurt you than it would ever do to help you. If you want to be with a young man, it behooves you to understand their perspective and how they think and who they are as people. Again, this is someone you're supposed to care about. This is someone you're supposed to love. Really doesn't make any sense that you dismiss how they feel simply on the basis that you think it's just insecure. So that being said, I just hope you guys got something out of today's video. And if you did, go and click the like button. Go and click the subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.